Just tell me where to hold it.
All right. We got to turn it around. Like,
That way?
yes, like this. All right. This is funny. All right. This is a little bit of an experiment, everyone, because we couldn't set this up the way that we wanted to. But here we are. I just need to switch this. I wish I could switch this camera around somehow. There we go.
Yeah, right there. Okay.
Now, can you see me?
Yeah.
If you're wondering, everybody who's tuning in, I apologize that I had a link set up for the program today for the live show that we do, of course, every Wednesday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern. However, once I got here, and if you're wondering where I am, if you're just tuning in now and you don't know, actually yesterday morning I left at about 7:30 Eastern time in the morning, and I got to Amarillo, Texas. I'm going to say at about 1 o'clock today, maybe 12:30 Central time. And I wanted to come and join all of the people for this Unfound Meetup. The second one, what I would call being an outsider, not from Texas. Lost service. Okay, we're going to keep trying this. Unfortunately, we're inside. And once again, I'm going to switch.
Okay.
All right, can everybody see me now? Again, we're going to try to figure this out once again. We thought that this would go a little smoother than it's going, but I'm now doing the Unfound live show. Why don't you show everybody that showed up? Everybody can wave if they want to wave for the meetup for this evening. This is in Amarillo, Texas, at Abuelo's in Amarillo. A really nice place. Food. Thank you, Paula, for dinner. And like I was saying before, I showed. Should be showing. Yeah, there it is. There you go. All right. Okay, don't scare me like that, Heather. But we're going to do the live show from here because that's where I am. I drove up here. I got here at about 12:30 today, and I wanted to show support for Charmian, who's organized now the second Unfound Meetup in this area. Of course, just about 10 days ago, we had an Unfound Meetup in
Dallas, was it?
Dallas. That's right, Charmian. Thank you. And now we are going to have another one organized by Cherie down in Houston, Texas. And I know some other people are trying to organize one, a few different places, not in Texas. Texas is certainly leading the way. I think we're going to have 4 in Texas before one in any other state is held, at least to my knowledge. So what I want to do, first of all, is just talk about why I'm here. I wanted to come and show support, of course, the Tom Brown case, of course, we covered, which is from Canadian Texas. Recently, we covered the Monica Appleton case, which she disappeared right here in Amarillo about 20 years ago. Unfortunately, nobody in her family could show up here this evening, but that's okay. Charmian's going to be doing something regarding that here in a bit. We've covered 2 Lubbock cases, not exactly close, but a couple other Texas cases with Jennifer Wilkerson and Zoe Campos. So I wanted to come and show up and show some support. Long drive, but it was certainly worth it. And before, of course, tonight, before we're done, we're going to talk about this Friday's case, the disappearance of Lisa Wallace from Eufaula, Alabama. And I've already done, of course, the interview for that episode. And that's going to come out, you should know, being that I'm going to be driving back to Florida Friday morning early. So that's going to be just like last Friday where the episode was posted early. This Friday, the episode will also be posted early as well. So now I want to bring up Penny. If you want to come up and just say hi to everyone, why don't you come up here for a second? You should know this is the first time that Penny, Thomas Brown's mother, and I have ever met. Of course, we've known each other since, April of last year when a friend of yours or a coworker put us in contact, right? Yes. And this is the first time we met today. I was a stranger over the phone, I guess, until today. And luckily, it's the media. You've done some interviews today, right? With who?
ABC and Fox News.
Okay.
It's here. Yeah.
Okay, and that was not your first time. They've talked to you before, right?
Yes. Many
right.
times. Yeah.
Okay, and they interviewed myself as well. Did you talk about the signs? Did you talk a little bit about
We did
that?
talk about the signs. I think as of today, there were about 700 signs that are going out throughout the Texas Panhandle into Oklahoma. And I know for sure we have at least one sign going to Minnesota.
Wow, Minnesota. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I have no
okay.
idea how that came about, but,
Okay.
but we're grateful. I know that we're grateful.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm getting the feeling there's a lot of people from Amarillo, but I know that
Yes.
there's some other people from Canadian, right?
Yes.
Here today. And how
Yes.
far is Canadian from Amarillo?
It's about 100 miles, I think.
100
100
miles.
miles, yeah.
Okay.
So it's about an hour and a half to 2 hour drive.
Okay. Good. Good. And I know who's with you. Who is here with you this evening?
I have my husband, Chris Meek, my son, Tucker Brown, my friend, Eva Hammer, and her daughter, Caitlin, and then my longtime friends, Janet Parnell and Mary Alice Hughes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And do you have any updates regarding the signs or anything?
Well, I read today that we may have to order more.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
Okay. But
yeah.
no information as to
No.
what might have happened to them. And it's been, 2 weeks now, right?
Yes,
for
it's been
3
2
weeks.
weeks.
For 3
Three. Yeah.
3 weeks. Wow. July 4th, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And I know that a lot of people are here to support you.
Yes.
And this is the second time, right? You were here for the meetup
Yes,
last
we were
year.
here for the one last year. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
So
Okay.
a lot of some familiar faces.
Yeah. It's for me, I think that I recognize a lot of the names here, and then finally
Yeah.
be able to put some
Yeah.
on. Was it faces with the names or
Names,
names?
yeah.
Faces with the names. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been good, and it's really good to finally meet you.
Yes.
See,
Yeah,
in
me
fact,
too.
when I got here, Charmian says you weren't here yet,
Yes, we
and
were
then
a
when I
little bit
walked
late.
in, I was like, I think that's her, but I'm not sure.
Yes, we were a little late. There was road construction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. I saw. I
Yeah.
noticed the road construction. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to talk to you later. Of course, after we're done, I'm going to make
Yes.
some arrangements regarding some things.
yes,
But it's good
Yeah.
finally meeting you
yes, you too.
for the first time.
Yeah.
And I hope that we'll continue to help you.
Yeah.
You know, until.
Yes, you have. Yeah.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks
Yes.
a lot.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Penny. Thanks.
Yes.
We also want to talk about another case that was recently covered on Unfound, and I mentioned it before, and that was the Monica Appleton case. And in fact, I was just talking to some people here who live in Amarillo, and some of them said that either they had forgotten about that disappearance or had never even heard about it till it was covered on Unfound. And of course, that's unfortunate. We know in these types of cases. In Unfound, we really don't care, how a person lived his life, but we know that Monica got into some things that probably she shouldn't have, might have led to a disappearance, but we can't really be sure about it right at the second. However, that is a disappearance that is about 20 years old. But I've been told, though, that a friend, one of Monica's best friends, wrote something about Monica, and I'm going to have Charmian, being that I've not read it yet, what this person wrote, I'm going to take over the camera. And Charmian, are you ready to read?
I am ready.
All right, I'm going to take over the camera for a second, and you can explain to the viewers who this person is and their relationship to Monica, and then you can read what she wrote.
Okay.
Okay, since I've not read it yet.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Me again. Okay, so this comes from, and actually, I think she's been an Unfound listener for quite some time. She became interested in missing persons because she is the best friend of Monica Appleton. Her name is Tami Keith, and she could not be with us tonight, but she has given me permission to read something that she wrote in memory of Monica. I'm going to read Tami's words exactly as she sent them to me. Verbatim, word for word. These are Tami's words and these are Tami's feelings, and I don't want to belittle that. I'm going to read it exactly as she wrote. She says, Monica and I have been the best of friends since 1982. Inseparable. She was gorgeous, fun, outgoing, a people person. Her and Marlon, her ex-husband, had dated in their teen years and then later married. Sure, they had their fights. I remember some pretty bad ones, but he definitely wasn't involved in her disappearance, drugs or no drugs. He wouldn't have killed her. With that being said, I know that she's dead. Monica was a huge family girl, adored her kids and family. The devil, drugs, took a hold, but that doesn't mean she didn't love those babies. I had a double birthday party for my son and daughter at a park in Pampa around May of 1997 or 1998. I can't remember. And across the park, I heard someone calling my name. I looked and I noticed that it was Monica. She was with two scrummy white guys. I couldn't make out who they were or if I even knew them. My then now ex-husband didn't like her. He was also controlling. So I had to act like I didn't hear her because he would have started crap. Now I wish I would have went to her. I might have been able to save her life somehow? ? I've regretted that day ever since. I do know from a distance that she was super skinny and unhealthy looking. Since she had the beautiful long blonde hair, she was always tiny, but she was super tiny that day. She continued to stay in touch after they moved to Maryland. This was before the birthday party. She wrote me every other week or so, but I wasn't a writer, so I never wrote her back. She would always send me pics of her and the kids at the beaches. From there, we lost touch until the day she hollered for me at the birthday party. I had never heard of the black guy in Amarillo, but if you ask me, that punk knows. I have always heard that a quote-unquote pimp rod was used on her private parts until it killed her, and then she was fed to the hogs. Do I believe that? You're damn right I do. I've heard hogs will eat hair, bones, clothing, everything. I wish this guy would confess. There has to be someone in the drug world that knows what happens. I wish I could think of more, but this was a last-minute writing. I love what you're doing for missing persons cases. As far as Thomas goes, it kills me. I didn't know Thomas until all this happened, but I do feel for Penny, and she is doing a great job by making herself heard. I have a 17-year-old, and I would do the same thing she is. I would stop at nothing. I'm always here if you need to talk, Sherman. I wish I could be there with you all tonight.
Okay.
Tammy, I want to say thank you for sharing that. That's very, very poignant, a very beautiful thing that you wrote about Monica. And Tammy, I just want to say personally, don't blame yourself. This was not your fault. You couldn't have done anything. You and Monica were both in situations at that point where I think that your lives just went down different paths. You know, thank you for sharing. And I wish I could just give you a big hug right now and let you know this is not your fault, Tammy. This is not your fault. Monica knew you were her friend and she knew you were there for her. And that matters.
Okay. Thank you, Charmin. Just wondering, maybe you having an audio issue right now? Can somebody be?
I think it's just because she's so quiet.
Okay, maybe it'll be better on the playback. Well, because I was holding it pretty close. Yes, Monica Appleton's case reminds me. I was actually talking to some people earlier. I'm very happy to have met everybody here tonight. That Monica's case, I felt like we need to talk about. Obviously, a lot of people are here because of Tom's case, but I thought because we're in Amarillo, we need to talk about Monica's as well. And of course, her case reminds me a lot of Jamie Bowen's case, one that just comes to mind, and many others, young women who get mixed up with wrong guys, the wrong things, and of course, then they disappear. And it's a case that's 20 years old. And, the good news, although I can't say much about it, and I still need to talk to Donnie, we keep missing each other, and I wish he could have been here this evening, is there a listener has done a little homework, done a little studying, a little research, and maybe we got some more information regarding that, but I can't, talk about it without talking to Donnie first. But I thought it was really cool that a friend of Monica's wrote that, and Charmin, I appreciate you reading that for everybody, and I hope people got to hear it. I hope it was loud enough, and I hope
I have kind of a quiet voice, although you wouldn't believe it.
Okay. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to mix things up a little bit. Next, I'm going to talk about this Friday's case, and that is the disappearance of Lisa Wallace. And then we usually do that at the end, but I'm going to do that now because what we're going to do is I'm going to take some questions, and some people wrote out some questions. We're going to kind of switch things up, being that it's a little bit different this week. And the reason, if you're wondering why we're doing this, we have to stand right here, and I think this part of the room to get the best reception. If I get too far over that way, I think that my cell phone reception goes out. But this Friday, we were covering the disappearance of Lisa Wallace. She disappeared from Eufaula, Alabama, and I have to admit, I drove through Alabama to get here, and I did think about her as I was driving through there, although I don't know if I came close to Eufaula. But it's come to think of it, as I did drive here, I did drive by some places where Unfound has covered some cases, now that I think about that. But she disappeared on October 27th, 2012, and this is another case, very much like Kamisha Hollis's case, where we have a woman who is married to a possessive guy, a violent guy, although I'm not sure that he had necessarily maybe the phobia or some kind of the mental illness that seems like Marvin Young did. We've got to talk about that during the think tank on Sunday night. I thought it was we had a really good discussion on Sunday night regarding all of that. But Chris Wallace was her husband, and of course it's one of those situations where we got in a fight, she walked off, I don't know where she went. Now, the reason this covering her case is timely now is because not long after she disappeared, Chris ended up getting another girlfriend, and he was with that woman until this year. And then she and he went on a robbery spree. They got chased by the police. They got cornered, and Chris Wallace shot his girlfriend and then committed suicide. This just happened this past February of 2019. So, but myself, and you should know that the guest for this episode is being that Charmian, you just wrote about something that Monica Appleton's friend wrote. This Friday, I am talking to Lisa Wallace's best friend, Libby Caldwell, and it's an interview that I've already done. I knew that I was going to be showing up here, so I made sure to get the interview done well in advance, and the episode's been completed actually since Monday, but it's going to go out early on Friday morning. So Libby is one of Lisa's best friends. They worked together for quite a while. Now, what's also interesting about Lisa is that she became afflicted with brain cancer, and she might manage to fight back from that. And then it could be that she was having some of those issues again in the months before she disappeared. She disappeared in October. She was supposed to be getting another, I don't know if it was going to be an MRI or whatever it was, but in December of 2012, of course, she disappeared. Before that, and of course, the rumor out there was maybe, well, because of this, was she depressed? Did she walk off? I think once you hear this, I think that I think I know what the listeners are going to be thinking regarding this. But this second case, and the episode is going to be titled Cancer on the Relationship is going to be the title of this episode. And I think that's fitting because last week we talked about Kamisha. This week is Lisa. But I think next week it's going to kind of be 3 cases in a row where we are talking about possessive men. Possessive men and wanting to control their wives instead of letting their wives be independent. And next week's case is going to be very much like that. But the interesting thing to me is that you're going to hear how Marvin Young, Chris Wallace, and the guy next week, whose name is Robert McKittrick, they themselves as personalities, their personalities are very much different, which I think is interesting. They're all very controlling, possessive, but how people perceive them outside of the home are completely different. And it's going to be very interesting to me once we cover next week's case, the disappearance of Tami McKittrick, that how the listeners, how all of you are going to react to all of that. Because I think we tend to put them all in one particular category. It's very interesting to me how these 3 guys are very, very different. Although I will admit that in Tami's case next week, I'm supposed to do that interview on Saturday night once I get back to Florida, that he was seen as, it's not quite as clear-cut maybe in that case as these other ones as to what happened. Once again, that'll be up for the listeners to decide. So I think right about now, that once again, it's going to be Friday morning. So you're used to Unfound episodes coming out at 2 p.m. Eastern time. Well, last Friday, because of a conflict I was down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida with a good friend of mine. It came out early. This Friday, the episode will be released early as well. In fact, I'll probably release it right before I start the drive back to Clearwater Beach, Florida. Once again, it's the disappearance of Lisa Wallace from Eufaula, Alabama in 2012. And the title of the episode is Cancer on the Relationship. And the guest will be a friend of hers, Libby Caldwell. So there you go. Let's take some questions. I know we have a sheet over here. There we go. Let's see. Now I looked at some of these questions. Okay. Now,
Thank you.
as you can probably predict, at least most of them are, and there's just a few of them. And if anybody thinks of anything, we can take questions from the audience while we're doing this. But some of these things I'm not going to be able to answer as precisely as I'd like, because I really don't want to get into it. I'm going to read the questions, and I think you'll understand, but I'm going to try to give it my best shot on each one. Okay, so unfortunately, because of the technology, I can't take any questions from the audience, although I do know that somebody did write some questions in the discussion group. So if somebody in the group wanted to go to the discussion group and find those questions, I will gladly read those off as well. If somebody could do that on their phone. The first question, has there been any evidence of a relationship between Sage and Nathan Lewis? Now, Sage is who? Somebody's going to have to,
The friend of Thomas Brown. I think they dated for a while. Yeah, they were in a relationship for a while.
Okay, so Sage is right. Okay. Had to be reminded of that. Not to my knowledge. Okay, I know that once again, there's been a lot of rumors regarding all of this, and you know how I like to stay away from that. And I know that other people have tried to put things in my mouth and said things that I've never said regarding Thomas's case, but not to my knowledge. The best of my knowledge, what I've been told, what I think is a fact, is that Sheriff Nathan Lewis and Sage's father were friends. I don't know if that's conspiracy or not. I don't know if that's weird or not. It's a very small town, so that would not surprise me. 2,500 people, they are going to know each other. So I'm just not gonna get into that. Number two, have they pulled Pine's phone records to see who he was texting the first night with Tucker? Not to my knowledge. Penny might maybe be a better. She's back in the background. She's shrugging. I have no idea either. I'm going to guess that, I really don't know how to answer that. The truth is, we just don't know what happened to Thomas. We all have our beliefs. We all have our theories and everything else. And I guess that Pine can be looked at. Of course, he's not a deputy in Hemphill County anymore. But what we've been told, it has nothing to do with Thomas's case whatsoever. I realize that the public thinks otherwise. Okay, and they're not. They'd have to get a search warrant to get his records. They'd have to get permission to get his records, and they would have to have probable cause. And I don't know if they have probable cause right now. I've heard the rumors about how Pine found Thomas's remains. Once again, I have to tell you, behind the scenes, I've been trying to figure that out myself. I've not been given any evidence one way or the other as to anybody yet. So I don't know. I wish I could say, but I can't. So I understand why people are suspicious of him. A lot of people continue to think that he was let go or fired because of something having to do with Thomas's disappearance. But as far as the public knows, as far as I know, the reason he was let go is just because he was a crappy cop. And that should happen more often, given as many cases I cover where police don't do a very good job in disappearances or anything else. So, but I think that, when I did my interview with Penny, now it seems like yesterday, but it was over a year ago, I think that we established factually that Pine should have never been a deputy in Hemphill County anyway. All right. And so, but once again, I don't know what that has to do with Thomas's disappearance. I have no facts, but I do know the theories regarding that. So I don't believe that his records have been taken, although we do all know about the texting and things he was doing on his phone that night. Number three, will you update the listings the listeners, if there's a breakthrough in Thomas Brown's case, I will. In fact, as I think, I already recorded the episode for Friday that I'm planning on doing a update episode. It's going to be either the first or second Friday in September. This will be based on. She's turning. It's okay if I stand sideways to the camera. I'm going to have an update episode coming out in early September, and it will be any updates that have happened on cases since the last update I did, which was in April. If you'll remember, I did a little bit of a poll, how often people would like me to do update episodes, and the most common answer was about every 4 months. So this is going to be about every 4 months. I really haven't started to look at all the updates for all the cases that I'm going to be able to cover, but due to, of course, the sign issue that happened on July 4th with Thomas's case, you can anticipate that will be part of it. And luckily, we still have about a month and a half, maybe not quite that long, before that episode will come out. So I'm sure Penny will let me know if there are any updates, if they figure out who did that. Now, as far as who did do that, once again, there's a lot of rumors out there. I talked about it. I don't know if it was last week or the week before. I'm not convinced it had anything to do with Thomas's disappearance, but really, I don't know any more than any of you do. So everybody's going to have their own interpretation of it. And but I went on the record, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, that I'm not convinced that it had anything to do. It just could have been somebody just wants it all to go away. It has nothing to do with it. Just maybe sick of hearing all the news that comes out of Canadian, and I can understand that. But the truth is, a young man's been murdered, and somebody has to go to jail for that. So that's just the way it is. That's the way it has to happen. But I can assure you that along with Thomas's case, any other case that has any updates regarding it. In fact, even just Kamisha Hollis's case from this past Friday, I don't know if some of you saw in the group, but they went to court yesterday. Marvin Young was in court yesterday, and a lot of information came out. And it was information that Caprice did not know when I interviewed her for last Friday's episode. And that just shows you when you cover these cases that are very, very new, and hers was just April of 2018. This is what happens when you cover these newer cases, that things happen even just after the episode comes out. And I'm happy to say that it does seem that in that case, there's a lot more information, just as I talked about, if you'll remember in my summary, that I was hoping that they had more information than we talked about in the episode, and it seems the prosecutor does. So that's a lot. That's very good news for Caprice's family, for her, and hopefully they'll convict Marvin of Kamisha's murder. But I'm hoping, of course, that he gives up the location of where he put Kamisha. So we'll just have to see. But I don't know if this is going to go to trial or not. And I've not had a chance to talk to Caprice one-on-one. She had tried to contact me while I was driving up here yesterday evening, but I was in an area where the cell phone service was very sketchy. So I told her that she's just going to have to wait until I get back to Florida. What are you reading there? Okay.
More questions.
Great. More questions. All right. Oh, yes, there we go. Thank you for getting those for the discussion group. I appreciate that. These were a couple questions that came in during today when I asked for questions from the group. How are so many people overlooked by trained dogs? I have to admit, it seems to me, I've only been doing this for 3 years. I'm very new at this. I am a reporter. I would not say that I've done, when I lived in Las Vegas, I went on a search for Stephen Kocher back when I lived there. That would have been like April 2010. But that's the only search that I've been on. So anything, my opinions regarding search dogs or anything like that are what I think that I've gathered from what people tell me, what guests tell me, like Penny or anybody else tells me about searches or anything that was done. And my overall idea is that humans find way more missing people than dogs do. Now, why is that? A lot of different reasons. First of all, as I've learned the hard way, is frankly, there are a lot of people who have dogs out there and they're charlatans. That happens quite a bit. In fact, I know that there's a con man in the panhandle of Florida right now who likes to represent himself as having these dogs that can find anything. And he's just lying. And there are a lot of people like that all over the United States. A lot of con people, both men and women, trying to rip people off that they say they have dogs that can find missing people and can't. In addition, it seems like just about every case that we cover, dogs are used, and you're right. I only cover cases where a missing person, there's no body. Then, of course, those dogs never find anything. Why is that? It's just hard to say. It's just not reliable. I think of dogs no different than I think of lie detector tests. They're just a tool. That's all they are. Maybe right, maybe wrong. We just don't know. And I think that I don't even know what that. Okay. So early on, it's funny now that I'm thinking about this. Early on in Unfound's existence, I almost had a guy on the program that had become a specialist, and I kind of just lost touch with him. Maybe I should get back in touch with him. He became a specialist in how bodies decompose in the wilderness, and it had to do with the disappearance of an American like Thailand or some Southeast Asia country like decades ago. And he became an expert on that. And maybe I should think about having him back on the program. And I think we underestimate how quickly bodies can decompose out in the wilderness, especially if it's raining a lot, if there's snow, of course, animals, and everything else. If you don't get dogs out there right away, I think your odds of finding a person greatly diminish. And of course, we know sometimes a missing persons report isn't even filed for many days, if not a week, if even not longer than that. That all doesn't help. So I think there are a lot of different factors. And on top of everything else, my personal opinion is, as well as these dogs are trained, sometimes I wonder what's going through their heads. I just do, and I love pets as much as the next person. So it's just hard for me to say. I think it's a lot of things put together, that is the reason. And the truth is, how, to really look at the question, how are so many people overlooked by trained dogs? I'm not convinced that they are. Are there many cases where dogs went out and searched all over the place, and then, a year later, the body's actually found in that area? I don't know how often that happens. I don't know. So there's that. The other question that I got from the group today is, how can we advocate more for missings besides sharing on Facebook? I think this is a great question. What I've tried to do with people who contact me personally regarding a question like this is, being that we all have the internet, you should become an expert on using the internet. I know I will tell you, for example, myself, I know that there is certainly a skill that I've developed over the past year that I did not have when I started Unfound. And that was being able to locate people just using an address. Okay? And I'm working on, if I could say this, Cherie and I are working on something behind the scenes where all we had were a couple first names and a couple addresses. And we were able to find these people's last names and find out where they're living now and find out their phone numbers and find out their Facebook accounts just from that information. If you feel like you don't know how to use the internet in trying to find people, that's something you can easily do. You don't even have to, leave your house to do that. Just something like that in helping a family, because what happens a lot of times is that people are, say it's a case that's like 15 years old. People are interviewed originally, and then people move on with their lives. Well, now maybe Unfound comes along and starts asking, well, where's this? I start asking a future guest, where's this person? Where's that person? And the person's like, I don't know. Well, you can, I'm hearing myself. You can help that person find these people by being an expert on how to use the internet to find people. And you don't even need to pay for a subscription to somewhere to do this. I think my assistant Emily pays for a service that she uses to find people, but I know myself, I don't use any paid subscription places. And still I was able to find some people, track these people down, and contact them and ask them about ask them, what do you remember back at this time? If nothing else, I could put that person in contact with the guest and say, you know what, I found this person. Why don't you talk to them? Something like that, it's very easy to do. It may take some time, but you don't have to leave your house. There's no money involved. Even if you devote a couple hours a week to it, in no time, you might hear a guest on the program. It might turn out that we talk about somebody they haven't seen in years, and you can track that person down for them. Something like that. And of course, what we're doing, like with Thomas Brown's case, with the signs and things, of course, are helpful too. But the main thing that I see is guests losing contact with friends or people that were around their missing loved one at the time. And they say, I don't know where that person went to. I don't know. Well, that can help out a lot. And I know in the last year, I've certainly gotten better at doing that. And in fact, once again, the case that I'm eventually going to cover out of California, where it's like the case is like 8 years old, and I've been able to track all sorts of people down that saw this missing person right before he disappeared. People that his mother hadn't lost track of, hadn't talked to in years. And I was able to talk to them again and just reaffirm their story, see if they're still telling the same story that they did at the time. Very easy to do. Let's take another question. Does NamUs cross-reference certain missing persons with unidentified remains? Like if remains are found in an area where a missing person was last seen, does it automatically cross-reference? To my knowledge, it doesn't. I will admit that I've had a conversation with a guy at NamUs maybe a year ago, maybe last summer. I don't remember that topic coming up. So I have to say I doubt it, because there's still so many unidentified remains on NamUs and so many missing people on NamUs that it just doesn't seem to me. It seemed like that would take a lot of people to do that. And I think the NamUs budget is $10 million. It's part of the Department of Justice. $10 million sounds like a lot of money, and I guess it is to just about anybody. But you start talking about people just sitting there and cross-referencing. I just don't think I don't think they do that. And I think that's why, once again, going back to that last question, how can you help out some way? Learning how to use NamUs is probably another good way to do that. Being able to learn how to cross-reference remains, and maybe you'll find somebody. Some case that's not well known, and you suddenly happen upon something that can solve a case just using NamUs. Because I'm convinced, given the odds and everything, that there still are cases, there are identified remains and missing people on NamUs who are connected. I'm convinced of that. Given how many there are on there, that has to be the case. It's just that nobody's put everything together.
Ed, I hate to interject here, but Carrie Wilburn is saying that she's taken NamUs classes and never were they taught to cross-reference.
Okay, there you go. That does not surprise me. Thank you, Carrie. Carrie would know that. I know Carrie very well. That doesn't surprise me. Like I said, I've never, I've been doing this for almost 3 years. I've never heard anything like that. And I think generally people just kind of suspect that anyway, because I know of so many people that go on there and do it themselves. So I appreciate Carrie. I'm just reading this note. That's funny. Yeah, I appreciate Carrie. Carrie would be in a position to know that, and that doesn't surprise me. So if it's going to get done, we're going to have to do it. The public in its free time or somebody is going to have to do it, because NamUs isn't going to do it. they have tough enough job as it is. Trying to get out there, organize DNA collection and everything else, and then taking cases off when they're solved, adding when remains pop up, they have enough work to do by themselves. And if you want to add somebody on top of that, of course, my friend Megan Good, she doesn't do that either. Of course, all she has are missing people. I know even in her capacity, as much time she spends with her site, I know she doesn't have the time to cross-reference all the missing people, the 10,000 cases on her site with missing remains on NamUs. So it's going to have to be up to other people. And once again, just an hour or two a week, if you could devote to that, it just goes a long way.
Carrie's going to try to drop some links on the page to show how to cross-reference.
Great. Thank you, Carrie, for doing that. And yes, I have to do this. I have to mention, I forget his title, but Dawson Biggs, Cherie's son, who is watching this evening. So I need to give a shout out to him because I think that he is seeing his mother right now, and she's ecstatic that he is home for a couple weeks from the military. And I think that they are watching together. So I need to give a huge shout out to Cherie's son, Dawson.
Welcome home, Dawson.
Yeah, and he's right here in Texas. Of course, Cherie is going to be organizing a get-together, a meetup in Houston on August 24th. So exactly a month from now. I'm not sure what day of the week that is or anything, but it's August 24th.
Cherie's singing, thank you very much.
Okay. Oh, you're welcome. I have to say hi to Bentley, too. I couldn't believe this, that two women who watch the show both have sons or grandsons with the name Bentley. What are the odds of that? I didn't even I didn't even realize that. I mean, I've heard of Dierks Bentley. It's a country singer, right? Here, I don't want, but for a first name for Bentley, and then to know that two of my listeners both have little boys with the first name Bentley was amazing to me. So I'm going to say hi to both Bentleys, who I know I've been told that they both watch it with their mothers or grandmothers on Wednesday night. So I got to say hi to them too. Let's get back to the first sheet. What am I losing here? Okay. Here's a question I get a lot, but I'm going to answer it. How did you find out about the Thomas Brown case? It's interesting because I was just talking to Penny about this before. That was a case that came to me in a different way. Of course, as you know, my assistant Emily finds a lot of the people, does those initial conversations with people who end up on Unfound. She's the one that does that initial contact, and she'll tell me what she's doing and who she's talking to, and she'll be giving me updates before they then talk to me, and then we really, really get deep. She just gives me a brief overview of the case once she finds somebody. But with Thomas's case, one of Penny's coworkers or friends, right? Penny, friend, contacted me. I was in April of 2018, and that's, like I said, that is probably not a way that it usually happens. Maybe that happens like 10% of the time, something like that. Like they'll say, well, I know a family member you need to talk to. This how it worked. And she contacted me. I had not heard of Thomas's disappearance before. I have to admit that's usually the case with most of the disappearances that I cover. But she told me what went on. I think that I had a couple conversations with her back and forth, and then maybe a week later, 2 weeks later, then I talked to Penny, and I remember the conversation like it was yesterday. I can remember sitting on my couch in my old place in Madeira Beach, talking to her, and of course we had many conversations, but I specifically remember, that first time that we talked. And, little did I know how much effect I think that Unfound has had on the case, and how much people have found Unfound due to that case. I could have never predicted that when I first started covering it. I'm guessing, this is my speculation, that the reason it went that way is I think based on the video alone. I think that that's really the thing that got people's attention when Penny had sent me a hard drive. She didn't just email it to me. She sent me a hard drive in the mail, of which I brought it with me. I have to give it back to you because I have a copy now. I have to give it back to you. looking at that and seeing something that all the other people that had watched the video to that point hadn't seen. Something that took the case in a direction, I'm just going to put it this way, the case in a direction that Penny and many others thought the case should go anyway. And it was factual. It wasn't a rumor. It wasn't anything else. And I think all of you know what that was at this point. It furthered a theory, once again, that to that point, that a lot of speculation, but at least put somebody close to where Thomas disappeared at the time he disappeared, which usually is pretty good evidence in any kind of case. So, but once again, it's still unsolved. But that's how I found out about it. It was from a friend of Penny's who insisted that that I cover the case. Now, how she heard about Unfound, I don't know. Obviously, Unfound is in a lot of different places. Unfound, I'm going to say, has grown by about 30% since April of last year. So we've had a lot of growth in the last year, a lot of new listeners, new subscribers, a lot of downloads and everything.
Carrie says we've reached 5,300 people in the discussion group alone.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just, I could have never, I can remember the discussion group. I think it has to be one of the largest discussion groups out there. And I can remember when there were 62 people in it. 62 people in the discussion group. Just crazy. And that was like November 2016, something like that. But how this particular friend of Penny's knew about Unfound, I don't know. I don't know if she ever even told me. I don't remember telling me. But that's how I found out about the case. And like I said, it was kind of a unique way that it happened that time. I'm guessing, given that the work that Emily does so well, I think that probably we would have gotten to it eventually, being that it is, there's obviously a lot of people on the page, and it's gotten so much attention anyway. I think we would have gotten to it anyway eventually, but that was one that came to us first instead of us going to them. Let me see if I got all these questions in here. I think that's on. Okay, Khalil Boy did. I don't know what this means, Khalil Boy. Okay, she's wearing. Okay, we got it. Okay, I'm not sure what this. Hopefully, Khalil Boy is still watching. He's asked, "Did Eddie make
it on the stage?"
Make it on the stage. I don't even know what that means.
I guess the concert you went.
Oh, the concert. Are you talking about the concert I went to last Thursday night? I have no idea what you're talking about, Khalil Boy. Cali Boy. I don't know what you mean by that, but no, I have not been on any stage recently. Not that I can remember anyway, so I don't know what to say about that. Now that I've answered all these questions, I keep dropping these pieces of paper, and I thank you for, thanks Charmian's husband for bringing those over. I deeply appreciate that. Any questions now that I've talked a little bit? Anything from the group? Anything that's on your mind right now? If not, we're going to just wrap this up. If nothing, any questions, anything? Nothing? Okay. Well, that's it. That's the live show for this evening. I'm sorry, tried to answer some questions. I appreciate anybody that was keeping an eye on things. And I know I didn't get to talk to all of you the way I usually do. That's just the way it worked out. But I can assure you next Wednesday, I will be back in Clearwater Beach, Florida, and we'll get back to usual programming. But I just want to remind you that this Friday, we'll be covering the disappearance of Lisa Wallace. Her friend Libby Caldwell is the guest. Did that interview last week. The episode is called Cancer on the Relationship, and it will be coming out early. So, like I said, probably 9 p.m. Eastern. 9 a.m., I should say, Eastern time, because by the time 2 p.m. Eastern comes around, I will be well on my way to driving back to Clearwater, Florida. I want to thank Charmian once again for putting this meetup together and all the work and finding. Yes, please put the camera on her if you could right there. There she is. And
Well, Ed, it's about the missing person. It's about, getting together and showing that panhandle spirit and that support for someone who's, we still don't know what happened. Why is this young man here with his family enjoying the dinner tonight? Well, we don't know. That's not right. Let's find some answers. Why is Monica not with her best friend, Tammy? spending, sharing their lives together, talking about their children and grandchildren and things. Why is Suzanne Lyle not there doing her computer work? And why isn't Suzanne? Darn it, Suzanne, we need your help with this technology today. Where are you, Suzanne? Where are you, Susie? We could have used Susie's help. And, why isn't she here to help us? That's the kind of things that we need. I found Unfound because I've seen Suzanne Lyle's case on the Unsolved Mysteries, was watching YouTube and saw a little, replay of it. And I just Googled it. And I said, I wonder what happened to Suzanne Lyle. Boop, up pops Unfound. And I started listening then. So I'm just an Amarillo girl, really, who just called up Wallace and said, please, can we meet up? Can we use your room, please? Can we? And the manager said, yeah, sure, come on. That's all it took. And, I did this for the family because we have a grieving mother here. A parent should not have to bury her child. Like I said, Penny is one of the strongest women I've ever met. And it's been an honor to meet her. It's been an honor to meet Ed. And it's an honor to see what this has turned into. My vision was, let's just get a few people together and talk cases. Like I was speaking with another listener. He just wanted to show up and talk about cases with other people, cases he'd heard. Well, we can do that. But, we can also support and use that love and support and prayers for a family who's still grieving and still needs those answers. And that's what it's all about, really, Ed.
And I thank you for putting it together. That's why I'm here.
Thank you.
I know it's not easy. But thanks everybody for showing up. It's been a pleasure. I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit more before we get out of here. It's been a pleasure meeting all of you. And I can't tell you how much I believe it's worth it to drive the whole way up here to spend some time with all of you. And I really appreciate your support of Unfound. And I'll see all of you. You'll hear me on Friday with Libby, and then the Think Tank Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then we'll be back to regular programming next Wednesday night from Clearwater Beach for the Unfound Live show. And I thank you, Heather, for finishing up the camera work when Charmian got tired. See you, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.